What's the worst thing you've ever been accused of while being completely innocent? My friend accused me of being the father of his children, but I wasn't. This morning, my best friend, let's call him A, texted me saying I'd messed up, and that our other friend T was furious. I went to meet up with them, and as soon as I showed up, T took a poor swing at me and even tried to kick me. Then T and A told me what all the anger was about. They said I'd been sleeping with T's wife behind his back for years and that all 3 of his kids were actually mine. I couldn't help but laugh. I told them that was insane. I didn't even like his wife. Not as a person, and definitely not in that way. She's been difficult since the day I met her, and honestly, I always thought T could do a lot better. So apparently his wife N had told him that none of the kids were his, and that they were all mine. She broke down and confessed, after T joked about getting a paternity test since all the kids looked so much like her. I told him she probably had cheated, but with someone else, and was using me as a scapegoat to make his life even harder. That just made him angrier, and when he got violent again, I had to restrain him. I told T I'd take a paternity test right then and there to prove I wasn't involved with his wife in any way. We went to T's house to confront N. She doubled down, saying I was the father, and that we'd been secretly in love for years. I told our friend A to take the kids out into the backyard. This wasn't something they needed to hear. I said, "All right, Bet, let's get this test done, and I'll prove to you how ridiculous this is." I took T and A out to the park and asked A to act as a mediator. We talked it through and came up with a plan. 1. I'd take a lie detector test first to show that I never slept with his wife. 2. We'd get a recorded statement from N confirming that she'd said she loved me and that nothing between us was non-consensual, just in case she tried to twist things later. 3. We'd work out when I could have even possibly gotten her pregnant if I really were the father. 4. After all that, we'd get the paternity test done. We all agreed to the plan. Now I'm just trying not to panic, even though my mind keeps racing with worst-case scenarios. Damn it, N, you really are something else. Honestly, I don't even know what I'll do if it somehow comes out that I am the father. I've never slept with her. Hell, I've barely even been in the same room with her without at least 1 or 2 other people around. I've gone over every possible angle in my head, and none of it makes sense. If she's lying, why would she want me to take a paternity test? Now, I'm just stuck wondering how on earth this could even be possible. I'm completely lost. I'm really hoping this is some kind of twisted prank my friends are pulling on me. I'll update if anything significant happens, but right now, I just need to sleep and try not to panic. Story 2. My father was once accused of hurting the neighbor's dog and dumping it at a remote beach. When I was a kid, we had a rocky relationship with one of our neighbors because they had this small, endlessly yapping dog that they barely took care of. It drove the whole street crazy, but somehow animal control never stepped in. Years later, after my parents moved to another part of town, my dad kept working on the old house to get it ready for sale. One afternoon, he was out on the driveway when the neighbors were leaving. They made eye contact as they drove away. When they returned later that day, their dog was gone, vanished without a trace. And just like that, suspicion landed squarely on my dad. They immediately accused my dad of sneaking over and doing something to the dog because he'd finally had enough of the noise. He tried to explain that an animal control van had driven through the street shortly after they left, but they refused to believe him. They were so certain he'd done it that they launched a full-blown social media campaign, trying to shame him into confessing. They flooded local community groups, posting his name and accusing him publicly. It got so out of hand that they even drove an hour out of town to the beach our family often visited on weekends, putting up posters accusing him of dumping the dog. It was wild, stressful, and completely ridiculous. The whole thing only stopped once we hired a lawyer and sent them a cease and desist letter, threatening to take them to court for public defamation. After that, they went quiet. The dog was never found, and unbelievably, they have 2 new ones now. This was also the same family who once found someone's lost cat and decided to keep it. Story 3, I was falsely accused a few years ago, and I can't talk to anyone about it. I'm 19 years old, and 2 years ago, I was falsely accused. I don't know why she had an issue with me, but it was easy for her. She never went to the police or to court. She just spread it around. I can't talk to anyone in my life about this, mostly because I don't have anyone. It costs me my friends and my family. When I try to talk about it with men I meet, it brings out the wrong kind of attitude. They use it as an excuse to be misogynistic. When I talk about it with women, it's different. They scare me, and it also makes them look at me like I have some kind of disease. I don't want to make people uncomfortable. I was 16 when it happened. My mom left shortly after I was born, and my dad died when I was 7, so I was living with a foster family at the time. I'd been placed with them for a little less than a year, and they were actually good, unlike so many families in the system. The girl went to my school, apparently. I don't know. I'd never met her before this happened. She probably had her own issues that made her do what she did, but I find it hard to feel sympathy for her. My foster parents believed me. They stood by me through everything, but no one else did. I was just the random troubled foster kid nobody really liked, and she was a fairly wealthy girl with a stable home and a close group of friends. I never got the chance to explain myself, nor did I get any kind of justice after her older brothers found me on my way to school, with a few bats between them. Even the school took her side. No one thought it was strange that she didn't want to involve the police. I had to beg and scream just to get someone to ask her when it supposedly happened, which turned out to be a day I was away at a competition. Did I get an apology? No. I was still treated like I had the plague while she walked away without consequence. After a few more close calls with people who wanted to get justice for her, it was decided that I should move away. That meant being placed with a new family, of course. I lost the only foster family that ever truly cared about me, and I never found anything like that again. I still get nightmares about her brother finding me again. I'm in university now, but I can't move on. I don't think I ever will. I keep track of everything I do, where I go, who I talk to, what time I leave and come back. I don't trust anyone. What happened came out of nowhere, and I'm terrified it could happen again. I know the chances are small, smaller than being struck by lightning, but that doesn't make the fear go away. I'm scared, and I don't know how to stop being scared. Story 4. My boyfriend accused me of giving him herpes. When I first met my boyfriend, things seemed great. For context, I work as a private dancer. I usually perform in themed outfits, like lingerie or performance wear, but never fully bare. Recently, my state changed its laws about the legal age for club dancers, so I stopped performing in clubs and now only do private events for trusted clients I've known for a while. I recently moved in with my boyfriend from across the state, though my lease on my apartment isn't up yet, just in case things go wrong. He's always encouraged me to keep dancing and earning my living, but recently, I found out he's been cheating on me. I've been hurt and angry, and before anyone judges me for being a dancer, I want to make it clear. I'm always honest and open about what I do. My boyfriend literally drives me to my dances. I even show him my conversations with clients and what they look like. My phone passcode is all zeros. I have nothing to hide because I'm not doing anything except dancing. He's not the same, though. When I went through his phone, I caught him texting multiple girls, about 4 of them. When we tried to be close again, I just couldn't feel connected. It's hard to be intimate when you know the person you're with has been talking to other people behind your back. Because of that, things didn't go smoothly, and he ended up with some irritation. The doctor confirmed the next day that it was just a friction burn, nothing serious. But instead of believing that, he turned it into something ugly. He accused me of giving him an infection and claimed I must have gotten it from the people I dance for. That's completely untrue. I've never cheated on him. I only dance, that's it. And he's the one who's always told me to keep doing it in the first place. Anyway, he tested negative for everything, and so did I. He apologized afterward, but I still feel disrespected. Not only because he accused me of something so serious, but because he cheated on me too. I don't even know what kind of advice I'm looking for. I just feel hurt and lost. I want to break up and move back home, but I hate being alone. I moved out 2 months after turning 18, and even before that, I had already checked out mentally while living with my mom. He was the first person who ever made me feel like I had someone. Story 5. I was falsely accused of stealing at work. I was called into the main office at my job by my manager, and I assumed it was about my low productivity rates. When I arrived, I sat down in a small office across from a loss prevention officer. After introductions, he told me he had definitive proof that I had stolen a pair of AirPods. I have never stolen or attempted to steal anything from either of the warehouses where I've worked. One of the first things he said was, "I know you stole them. I'm not here to argue with you. I just want to know why." He claimed they had me on camera removing the AirPods from their packaging and putting them into my backpack. I have no idea what I could have done that might have looked like I was stealing anything. They wouldn't let me see the video, saying it was against policy. I spoke with them for about an hour and a half, and the loss prevention officer kept the same attitude the whole time, acting like I was guilty and just wasting his time. He was rude, dismissive, and generally treated me with no respect. At one point he said, "Look, I wouldn't have you here if we didn't know you did it. We've done a thorough investigation and this has been reviewed by multiple people. This would be a lot easier on you if you were just honest." There was also a woman he was training who even muttered "shut up" from the corner of the room while I was mid-sentence, about an hour into the conversation. The whole thing felt less like an investigation and more like a formality before firing me. They made it clear they already believed I was guilty. At one point, he tried to flex his authority by saying he could have me let out in handcuffs for something I didn't do and that they clearly don't have real proof of, but that he wasn't doing so because he was showing understanding. He then added, "But I'm about to change my mind," which seemed to come from frustration that I was taking up his time by trying to defend myself. Throughout the conversation, he made threats, called me a liar, and directly accused me of being a thief. What makes the situation even more suspicious is the timing. Just about 2 weeks earlier, I had requested a 6-month disability leave for a major surgery I have coming up. It feels incredibly convenient for them if they didn't have to pay me during my leave. Several people have told me that loss prevention wouldn't have access to information about my disability request, but I can't help being skeptical given the timing. My surgery is scheduled for less than a month from now. I'm a college student and I've built my life around this procedure. It's been planned for many months. It's also the reason I purchased my own insurance for the first time. If they fire me, I'll lose that insurance and potentially my ability to go through with the surgery. Even if I somehow kept the surgery date, I wouldn't have coverage for most of my post-operative care. It would be catastrophic for me. I don't know what to do. They've placed me on paid leave while they continue their investigation. Many people on Reddit are worried that this leave is just a formality and that they've likely already decided to terminate me. I have no money for legal representation, and I'm not sure how to defend myself in a situation like this. Do I have any options? Story 6. I got accused by my mother of attempted murder. When my brother was still a baby, barely able to stand, my mom decided it was time for us to take our first bath together. She sat me down and told me very seriously that I must not push him, and that if he fell onto his back, he wouldn't be able to get up on his own. I understood how important that was, so while she washed him, I just played quietly with the bubbles. At some point, my mom had to turn around to grab a towel from the counter behind her, and I swear to you this all happened in the 10 seconds she wasn't looking. My brother was never in any danger. But of course, that's not how she saw it. When my mom turned, she startled my brother, and he lost his balance, falling onto his back. I knew a baby's head was really fragile, so I jumped to rescue him. I slid one hand under his head before it hit the water, and the other on his back to steady him. But I was sitting in the tub, and even though he couldn't have been more than a year old, I was only 5, and he was too heavy for me to lift in just a few seconds. And that's all the time I had before my mom turned back around. As soon as my mom turned around and saw us, she immediately assumed I had pushed him. She panicked, pulled us out of the bath, and started questioning my brother, asking if I was telling the truth or if I'd shoved him. But here's the plot twist. Both of us, as little kids, always mixed up yes and no. So when my brother tried to defend me, he accidentally doomed me instead. My mom looked absolutely distraught. Honestly, I'd never seen her so stressed in my life. After I spent a while stuck in my room, she finally came in to let me out and apologize. My brother had asked her why I was punished, and that's when she finally put the pieces together. Story 7. When I was in college, I had a brief relationship with a young woman. Things were fine at first, but then she started acting strange, and shortly after we broke up. She said she needed space, but it turned out she had cheated. No big deal. I moved on and figured that was the end of it. Then, all of a sudden, people started avoiding me. I'd sit down at a table with people I thought were friends, and they'd make excuses and leave. One day, I was driving near the dorms when someone threw a rock at my windshield. I had no idea what was happening. Eventually, while I was waiting for class, a girl I knew walked up to me slowly, looked me straight in the eyes, and said, "I just want you to know, I don't believe that you punched X in the face." I just stood there and said, "Wait, what?" I was pretty well liked on campus, so when it came out that she had cheated on me, a lot of people thought she was awful for it. I hadn't told many people myself, but the guy she cheated with bragged about it, and her reputation took a hit. Naturally, her way of shifting the negative attention was to lie. She started telling people I'd punched her in the face when we broke up and that I'd been stalking her. She even showed people old messages saved on her phone, claiming I'd just sent them. Things like, "Good morning, beautiful." When people asked why she never had any bruises, she said she'd covered them up with makeup. People assumed I was guilty, and I nearly dropped out of college because I was so depressed from being treated like a pariah. Only a few people in my circle actually believed me. Right around the time I was thinking about leaving school, she got caught lying about someone else, pulling the exact same stunt she had with me. When people realized what she'd done, they started putting two and two together and saw that she had been lying about me as well. I ended up getting a lot of apologies. I'd never so much as raised my voice to her or said an unkind word, but a lot of people were quick to throw me under the bus. Story 8. My first management position involved overseeing a few dozen new hires and determining where they would best fit and excel based on their strengths. I had been with the company for 13 years and in this role for a little over a year. One new hire, a recent college graduate, started having issues almost immediately. Nothing major, but a lot of small things. Showing up late, ignoring the dress code, and lacking professionalism in phone calls and emails. It wasn't unusual. Sometimes new employees just need guidance on expectations or how their behavior comes across. But in this case, the behavior didn't improve. Even after multiple warnings, both informal, "Hey, notice this," and formal written ones that were forwarded to HR. As we approached the 90-day review, it was clear to me that I would be recommending termination. The behavior had escalated to outright defiance, failing to show up for work, contacting payroll without permission, dating a coworker very unprofessionally, and one particularly memorable incident where the employee claimed they couldn't participate in a project because they had allergies. About a week before the review was scheduled, she filed a complaint with HR. According to her, I was essaying her. I was supposedly trying to date her. Everyone knew about it, and I invited her to drinking parties after work. Every bit of it was complete nonsense. The investigation lasted 6 months. During that time, I was reassigned to a do-nothing job and interviewed a dozen times because she kept adding new allegations. Eventually, they had enough to allow the lawyers to clear me, fire her, and move me into a so-called parallel position that was anything but. It was a dead-end job, and I worked my bum off in it for 3 more years. Eventually, my mentor took me to lunch and laid it out plainly. I had no future with the company. I could stay where I was, but there would never be an opportunity for advancement. The stain of having been the subject of an HR investigation was too much. They were keeping me on so I wouldn't sue. His advice was to find a job in another city, move, and they would provide a glowing reference. I had been there 16 years. I moved, started over in a new career field, and now I do a lot of counseling. Story 9. Bank robbery. It was my first day as a gas jockey in a new city, and I'd arrived early. I was standing across the street from the gas station, rummaging through my backpack, when suddenly someone shouted at me to show my hands. Completely confused, I looked up to see 2 Royal Canadian Mounted Police officers with their hands on their sidearms, though they didn't draw them. It turned out there had been a bank robbery just around the corner a few minutes earlier, and my gas jockey uniform and backpack matched the suspect's description. They checked my bag, which only held my brown bag lunch and a paperback novel, and then they were gone as quickly as they'd appeared. Apparently, the real robber wasn't caught until after committing another bank robbery in the same area. Story 10. When I was about 8 years old, I got accused of breaking a girl's arm on a bounce house at a local fair. I'd only been on it for a few seconds, just bouncing around, when I suddenly heard screaming. Everyone stopped, and there was this girl holding her arm, clearly broken. She immediately pointed at me with her good arm and yelled, "He did it!" The guy running the bounce house kicked me off right away. No refund, no discussion. I found my family and tried to explain what happened. And thankfully, my uncle spoke up. He'd been filming me on his giant camcorder, the kind from 1982 that was the size of a briefcase and recorded on VHS tapes. Unfortunately, we didn't have any way to play it back while we were still at the fair. When we got home, we plugged the camcorder into the VCR and played the tape. It was absolute 100% proof that I hadn't done anything. Clear as day. The girl just landed wrong. But then I got one of my first real-life lessons. Being right doesn't always mean you win. My dad pointed out that to prove it, we'd have to walk 15 minutes back to the fair, argue with the guy running the bounce house, and somehow convince him to send someone to our house just to watch the tape. All that effort for the 10 pence I'd paid for 5 minutes of bouncing. At best, it would have been a Pyrrhic victory. Most likely, they'd just tell us to piss off. Story 11. We lived in a townhome condo complex. My mom was in a dispute with the board over misused funds. One day, while she was at work, there was a knock at our door. A neighbor said she had an emergency and asked if I could watch her kids while she went to the hospital. I agreed. I was 16 and had been babysitting for 4 years. I spent a few hours looking after 2 cute kids, ages 3 and 5. I got home before my mom. We started dinner. And then there was another knock at the door. It was a pair of police officers. The mother had gone to the station and accused me of abusing her kid, claiming I had hit her and locked her in the dryer for several hours. My mom asked the cop if he was insane. She pointed out that I was the kid who picked caterpillars off the sidewalk and moved them to the grass so people wouldn't step on them. Then she asked the officers to identify the complainant. When one of them pointed, my mom turned to me and asked if I was crazy, because that was the woman who had stolen funds from the condo board. Why would I ever go there? I told her I didn't know that, and that the woman had said she needed to go to the hospital immediately because her dad had suffered a heart attack. The cops said they would be back. An hour later, they returned and told us I wouldn't need to come with them after all. It turned out the dad was alive and well. I wasn't so well, though. I'd spent the whole hour having a full-blown panic attack. Story 12. I was 19 and working my first job at a daycare. At the end of the day, after the kids left, we spent about an hour cleaning the rooms. There were no children in mine, so I had my headphones in, listening to music while I cleaned. A parent came in looking for a bib she had left behind. I handed it to her, wished her a good afternoon, and went back to cleaning. The next day, I was called into the director's office. That same parent had claimed I was listening to music and ignoring a screaming child in one of the cribs. There hadn't been any children in that room at all. I immediately started crying because I couldn't believe a parent would tell a lie that could get me fired. I told the director to check the cameras. Yes, I had been listening to music while I cleaned, but there were absolutely no children in that room. I was told that if they found out I was lying, I'd be fired. I didn't get fired, but I only lasted about 5 months total, because even though the kids were great, the parents absolutely sucked. Story 13. About 10 years ago, my best friend had several $100s stolen from her nightstand. I was the only other person who knew it was there. There was no sign of a break-in, and nothing else was disturbed. At the time, I was pretty desperately broke. All the signs pointed to me, and there was absolutely no way for me to prove I was innocent. She handled it so calmly, too, asking if maybe I had borrowed it and planned to replace it. When I swore up and down that I hadn't touched the money, she believed me, even though logically she had no reason to. Thank God, she eventually noticed that her bedroom window had been tampered with. It turned out the neighbor's couch surfer had been watching the apartment, keeping track of when people came and went. He had let himself in through the window and been careful not to disturb anything. With the place to himself, he had plenty of time to search, and a nightstand drawer isn't exactly a hard place to guess. I don't remember exactly how she figured out it was him, but we were both so relieved when she did. Story 14. I bought a nice DSLR camera and was excited to get into photography. I walked down the street to the huge local park with my new $1,000 wide-angle lens and started learning the basics. After about 30 minutes, a bleach blonde soccer mom began shouting something at me from about 100 feet away, but I couldn't hear her. I walked closer to see what she wanted, and when I was around 30 feet away, she started screaming that I was too close. Then she began shouting questions. "Why are you here? What are you doing? Are you taking pictures of my children? Do you have pictures of me?" I tried to explain that it wasn't a telephoto lens, it was wide angle, and it couldn't possibly take pictures of her from all the way across the park, but it's hard to yell that from 30 feet away to someone who thinks she's a mama bear defending her cubs and therefore justified in any behavior. I told her I only had pictures of birds and landscapes. She yelled back, "What birds? There are no birds." I shrugged and tried to walk away, but she shouted that if she ever saw me again, she'd call the cops and have me arrested. The playground she was at happened to be right next to my car, so I ended up hiding in a corner for almost an hour waiting for a chance to leave. When I finally got home, I put the camera on a shelf, and I haven't touched it since. Story 15. During the holiday season, many retail stores hire extra security to prevent shoplifting. As an important side note, a lot of these guards earn bonuses based on how many people they catch. One holiday season, I was shopping at a chain cosmetics store when I was suddenly accused of shoplifting. It turned out the security staff had been slipping products into my bag while I wasn't looking. Granted, I was careless to set it down while trying samples, and then tapped my shoulder as I was walking out. I had actually made purchases at that store, but I didn't realize what else was in my bag because I paid using Apple Pay on my phone, so I never had to open or look inside it. It was also a large bag I was using specifically for holiday shopping, filled with gifts I'd already bought for several people. The store staff were obviously in on it too. They didn't care about what I had to say and refused to check the security cameras, claiming the guards witnessed me putting products in my bag. I couldn't push back too hard either, because I was an international student on a visa. Getting expelled from school would have meant being forced to leave the country. Story 16. Stalking. There's a mall near where I live. I've lived here since 4th grade, but started going there on my own around 6th. I'm not big on socializing, so I don't have many friends. Sometimes I just go to the mall to walk around and look at things. I thought everyone did that. During senior year, a girl from my JROTC class started acting weirded out by me. Whatever. She worked at the mall too, but I didn't care. She wasn't any of my business. I kept going to the mall when I wanted to. It helped me relieve stress. About 2 months ago, though, her friends started accusing me of stalking her, saying I'd been watching her from a distance and other nonsense. They were already mad at me for not acting upset when the senior trips and dances were canceled, even though I actually was. I just didn't show it. About 14 people in a group chat of around 26 took the opportunity to let their anger out on me. They called me a stalker, creepy, weird, antisocial, everything. It hurt because some of them had always been nice, and I thought we got along well. I really believed they considered me part of the team. I defended myself. I've lived here my whole life, and I was about to join the army and leave for a long time. I felt I had every right to enjoy the place I was most comfortable in, the place I called home. I still feel that way. The worst part was that it was my first year in JROTC, and ever since then, they've all treated me terribly. Because of that, I've neglected all my JROTC work. It's not required for graduation anyway, and I ignore the Zoom calls since most of the leadership is there. I just don't see any reason to keep associating with a group that constantly talks trash about me and other students behind our backs. Story 17. Funny story. An old friend from school, let's call him Dale, invited me to his family cottage for the weekend. I went along, and we had a good time. BBQ, board games, the usual. A couple of weeks later, I was talking to Dale when he told me his parents were very upset with me. Here's where it gets funny. Apparently, just as we were leaving the cottage that weekend, someone had used the toilet before the road trip home. The toilet clogged, overflowed, and spilled nasty toilet water all over the main floor, completely ruining it. They didn't discover the mess until weeks later when they went back and found the damage. For some reason, they decided it was my fault. I swear, it wasn't. I wasn't the last one to use the bathroom. It was either Dale or his brother, but his parents, who were pretty rude to begin with, wouldn't let it go. They'd constantly bring up the toilet incident, bragging about how insurance paid for new hardwood floors and how great the place looked thanks to me. F you, Carol. You know, I didn't ruin your floors. It was one of your idiot sons. Story 18. I was accused of stealing $10,000 of my roommate's drug money. A stash I didn't even know existed. This happened about a year and a half ago. Things got bad fast. They trashed my room, destroyed my belongings, screamed in my face, and threatened me constantly. They said they had guys who would come after us, that we were being watched, and even had random people taking pictures of my car and recording me. It was terrifying. They told everyone they knew in our small town and posted about it all over Facebook. We ended up staying in a hotel for a week before finding another place to live, borrowing money from our parents just to get by. We're still in debt because of it, and I've been stuck with a reputation as a thief. To this day, I have PTSD from the whole thing and take medication for anxiety and paranoia. I've been confronted about it by random people more times than I can count, and I've even thought about moving out of state, but I just don't have the money or resources to do it right now. Story 19. When I was a teenager, the good macaroni pot went missing from the cupboard. One day I asked my mom where it had gone, and soon we were asking my brother and my stepdad too, but no one knew. My mom tore the entire cupboard apart looking for it. Eventually, she and my stepdad decided that either my brother or I, or both of us working together, had taken the pot and hidden it as some kind of prank. We both completely denied it, but they were convinced we were lying. It was a rough week, getting the cold shoulder from my mom and a steady stream of passive-aggressive digs from my stepdad. One night, I went to my brother's room and told him he could be honest with me if he was the one who took the pot. I even swore I'd keep it secret. He denied it, then turned the question back on me. I hadn't taken it either, and I told him. So, my brother was never the type to pull something like that, and to this day, I believe he didn't do it. I'll admit, I was the more likely suspect, but I was innocent too. Then one day, I came home from school and went to make macaroni, and there it was, the good pot, right back where it belonged. I used it, excited that the mystery was solved. When my mom came home, I proudly showed her that I'd found it, expecting her to be relieved. Instead, she got mad all over again and accused me of sneaking it back while everyone was gone. Kick 'em while they're down, Mom. Story 20. I'm the mom of a 20-year-old girl with cerebral palsy and spastic quadriplegia. I had her when I was 19, and she is truly the most remarkable human being I've ever been blessed to know. As an infant, she spent 14 days in intensive care, then was moved to a regular room, and later to a rehab hospital for about 2.5 months. I spent every single moment with her. I never left her side once. I could go on and on about what that time was like, but to put it simply, I saw her near death, and I also watched her fight her way back. She has become, in every sense, a living teacher of humility and compassion to everyone she meets. Needless to say, during those months in the hospital, I often felt very alone and uncertain. At night, I would cling to a few thoughts that gave me hope and strength to keep going. A little over 2 years earlier, one of my best friends had a daughter who went through something similar at birth. Her prognosis had looked just as dire, but thankfully, her little girl, though once near death, made a full recovery, with no disabilities, developmental delays, or physical limitations. I can't describe how much hope that gave me. Thinking about her daughter became my comfort each night, something that helped me believe my own baby might pull through too. I was so grateful to know their story. My daughter, however, was what the doctors described as profoundly impaired. When we finally came home, I had to learn how to navigate life not only as a brand new parent at 19, but as the mom of a child who was severely handicapped, developmentally delayed, legally blind, dependent on a feeding tube, and in need of constant care from therapists and doctors, plus managing seizures, medications, and everything else that came with it. At that time, I simply couldn't maintain my friendships. Not because I didn't want to, but because I had no energy left to give. Most of my closest friends understood that if they wanted to support me or spend time with me, they'd have to reach out because I was spread so thin. All except for one, my friend whose daughter had gone through a similar birth injury. She never spoke to me again. When I occasionally ran into her in public, she seemed visibly upset by my presence, and I had absolutely no idea why. I missed my friends and longed for some sense of normalcy, so it was a hard pill to swallow, especially when I felt I didn't deserve that kind of treatment. Years later, when I tried to reconnect with her, she bluntly accused me of cutting her off because I supposedly resented her and her daughter. Because hers got better, and mine did not. I can't express how far from the truth that was, or how much it showed that she never really understood who I was, or am, as a person. To be so self-absorbed, to assume resentment instead of compassion, was painful. If she had taken even one moment to ask how I was doing through it all, she would have understood why I couldn't give her the time and attention I wanted to. She will always be my friend. We've known each other since we were 12, and I understand that people and their perspectives can change over the years. I try to give her the benefit of the doubt. Still, the whole experience has cast a shadow over how I see her now. Because how dare she not only think of herself while my daughter and I were going through all of that, but also, how dare she assume I'd ever wish to change my child? Lol, as hard as things have been and still are, I do not have the lesser of the two. When she accused me, I told her exactly that. I explained as tactfully as I could that I've had to face things she will never truly comprehend. One of them being how to lead with complete compassion. Enough compassion to actually see who my child is. Maybe her daughter got better because that was what she needed. But my child came into this world the way she is because I can handle it, love her fully, and help others understand what true strength and empathy look like. And that, to me, is profound. Story 21, I was accused of breaching a contract. I was in the process of buying a house and had signed a contract stating that the mortgage loan interest rate would be around 2%. After signing, my realtor took me to the bank, and that's when I was told the actual rate was 4%. I confronted my realtor, telling him I felt blindsided because he hadn't mentioned that before the meeting. He claimed he didn't know. So, I called the bank manager who had interviewed me, and he said my realtor had already been informed about the higher rate. I told my realtor I no longer wanted to go through with the contract because he'd clearly lied to me, and because the terms we'd agreed to were not valid anymore. However, as a foreigner living in Japan, my realtor clearly thought he had an advantage. He fabricated documents that my husband and I had never seen before and claimed I hadn't listened to his explanation because I was too busy filling out forms. When I refuted that, he changed his story and insisted he didn't speak English at all, despite the fact that we'd been communicating in English for over a month, with plenty of texts and emails to prove it. His company backed him up anyway. He was the boss's son after all, and they accused me of breaching the contract, demanding a cancellation fee of about $55,000. Fortunately, one of my Japanese acquaintances happened to be well-connected and experienced. He stepped in, helped get me out of the contract, and even apologized on behalf of the Japanese people. I was truly moved by his kindness. Story 22. My husband's ex-wife is accusing me of being controlling because I told my stepdaughter to stop seeing a guy who's abusive. Her relationship with her mom has been strained ever since her parents' divorce. My stepdaughter, who's 18, wanted to live with her dad, and that led to a long court battle. In the end, my husband won, and ever since then, her mom has seemed to resent her for it. In recent years, her mom hasn't been very involved in her life. Since I started dating her dad, my stepdaughter has come to see me as her mom. That's something her mom really hates. She gets upset that my stepdaughter calls me mom and calls her by her first name. But my husband supports it, and it makes my stepdaughter feel loved and secure. I've never seen it as a problem because I truly love her and want to be there for her like she's my own daughter. A few days ago, I started noticing something was off with the guy she was dating. He's 19 and was trying to control her. He dictated how she dressed, what makeup she wore, even how she did her nails. After a long talk, I advised her to stop seeing him because it wasn't healthy. I shared some of my own experiences from when I was her age with guys like him, so she'd understand where I was coming from. After several conversations, she finally agreed to stop talking to him. It's been hard for her because she really liked him, but we thought things were starting to get better. We've been doing everything we can to support her and help her heal. Then, out of nowhere, her mom started accusing me of being controlling, saying I'm trying to manipulate her daughter and run her life. None of that is true. All I've ever wanted is to protect her and help her make better choices for herself. This woman is still in contact with her youngest daughter, who also lives with us. Apparently, she told her that her sister has been feeling depressed and explained why. And it seems she used that as the perfect excuse to get angry with me. My husband tried to talk to her and explain the situation, but she refused to listen. Instead, she told my stepdaughter that she should start seeing that guy again because, in her words, I don't know anything. And look, I understand that my own relationship might be considered unconventional, but I know what an unhealthy one looks like. My husband may be much older than me, but he has never tried to control me. He's never told me what to wear or how much makeup to use. He's never asked me to quit school or stop working, never pressured me into anything sexual, never gone through my phone or demanded my passwords, and never tried to get me pregnant knowing I wasn't ready. But this guy did all of that with my stepdaughter, and I can't stand by and watch her go through something that could break her. I just want her to be safe and know what a healthy relationship really looks like. The problem is that now she believes her mother might be right, that she can fix him. She says he isn't bad all the time and that he has never hit her or anything like that. My husband and I don't know what else to do. It's heartbreaking to see her so depressed over someone who isn't worth it, and we don't know how to make her see reason. Should he give her an ultimatum to stop seeing him? She doesn't work, lives with us, and we pay for everything. I know it sounds harsh, but we don't want her to ruin her life with this man. What else can we do to help her? Story 23. My husband accused me of financial infidelity. My husband, 33 male, and I, 33 female, have been married for 10 years and have been together since college. From the beginning, we made financial security a priority, and with some good fortune along the way, we've been able to achieve that. We both have good jobs, each earning close to $200,000 a year. We paid off our student loans within a few years. Both of us went to state schools with scholarships, so our debt wasn't very large to begin with. We live in a house I inherited from my grandmother, so there's no mortgage, and we don't have any credit card debt. We each max out our 401k contributions and currently have about 18 months of expenses saved in an emergency fund which we continue to build. Our cars are both paid off and should last another 5 years or more, and we still have no credit card debt. We manage our finances in a hybrid way, joint accounts for bills and savings and separate accounts for our fun money. Each of us receives a fairly generous monthly allowance for personal spending. This fun money is strictly for individual expenses, things like hobbies, clothes, and outings with friends, and not for shared costs such as date nights, vacations, or larger joint purchases like household appliances or home repairs, which come out of our joint account. We also agreed that any bonuses or side income either of us earns would go into our individual fun money accounts, unless the funds are needed for a major shared expense, such as a significant home repair. When it comes to our fun money, my husband is much more of a spender than I am. His hobbies, especially golf, collecting sports memorabilia, and buying designer clothes, tend to be on the expensive side. That's perfectly fine. It's his fun money to use as he likes. My hobbies, on the other hand, are far less costly. I enjoy running, working out, reading, and baking. I'm also more introverted, so my idea of a great time is having tea with a friend at one of our homes, often with some homemade pastries. Recently, I've been getting back into gaming after setting it aside for much of the past decade while focusing on my career. Since I had more than enough saved in my fun money account, I decided to upgrade my entire gaming setup. I bought a new PC, desk, and gaming chair, which together cost around $5,000. However, when my husband heard about the purchase, he was furious. He said he had no idea I had saved that much money and that I should have consulted him before spending $5,000. I asked what difference it made if the money came from my own fun money account rather than our joint funds, but he insisted that my saving up that amount without telling him was a form of financial infidelity. He said he felt betrayed and no longer knew what else I might be hiding. He demanded that I return the items I bought and transfer most of the remaining money into our joint account. He also wants to create a new rule, stating that fun money accounts cannot accumulate more than $2,000 and that any excess should go back into the joint account, a rule that would clearly benefit him, since he tends to spend most of his monthly allotment instead of saving up for larger purchases. I feel like I'm being punished for simply being more of a saver than a spender. It would never occur to me to demand to know how much my husband has in his fun money account or to micromanage what he spends it on. I wasn't deliberately hiding anything. He just never asked about it until after I made the purchases. Still, I can see that maybe I could have been more transparent about my plans, even if I technically didn't do anything wrong. Additional context. My husband and I each have our own office or hobby room in the house, so the gaming setup isn't in a space he uses. I also make a point not to game when he's home unless he's already occupied with something else. My biggest block of gaming time is usually when he's out playing golf. I also run between 40 and 50 miles a week, so it's not as if I'm sedentary or neglecting other aspects of my life. Honestly, I can't think of a reasonable explanation for why he would object to me gaming or to me having a nice setup in my own space. Story 24. False stalking accusations from woman I barely know. I'm seeking advice on how to handle a situation that has become both frightening and disruptive. A few years ago, I had a brief fling with a man who later began dating this woman. In 2020, after they started seeing each other, she messaged me to ask if he had cheated on her with me. He had not. That was our only interaction. I have not spoken to her since. Despite that, she has repeatedly made public posts about me on Instagram and Facebook over the past few years. She has a pattern of accusing other women of copying her or wanting to be her. But she seems to have become fixated on me in particular. She's used my tattoos, the colors of my clothing, and old photos as supposed proof that I'm stalking or imitating her. She even created a highlight reel titled Stalker, featuring my face and filled with conspiracy-style claims about me that she appears to genuinely believe. She recently posted that she was nervous to post about her stalker, clearly referring to me, and claimed that the goal of stalking is murder. She will unblock me in the middle of the night to leave comments, then block me again before I can respond or report them. She even commented on my fiance's engagement photo calling me a future criminal stalker and has posted comments on my workplace's Instagram page, telling people to look at her profile for proof about me. It feels like she has been keeping tabs on me for 5 years. Every time she posts claiming that I'm stalking her, it only reveals that she is actually monitoring me, which is why her comment about murder is so alarming. There have been many other incidents, but I'm sharing only an overview here. I've had several friends and family members report her account for harassment and bullying. A few weeks ago, I went to the local police department. They provided an incident report and advised me to file for a restraining order, though I'm not sure the courts would even grant one. Story 25. I was accused of damaging employee's car. A few days ago, I was getting out of my car at work when my door lightly touched the car next to me. An employee from the same company, someone I've only met in passing, got out of his vehicle and said loudly, "You hit my car." I thought he was joking, since the contact was minimal, and I agreed that my door had touched his. I assumed he got out because he was also heading into the same building, where I was about to begin a security test of the alarms. I then started speaking with security about the plan for the test, and we all went inside. A few minutes later, the same employee called me and asked why I had hit his car and walked away. I told him I'd be out shortly. When I went outside, he and his coworker were there, and I started to explain that the test would be over soon and they'd be able to enter the building. I was about to address the door incident, but he interrupted, saying I had dented his car. I walked around with him as he pointed out a spot he claimed was damaged. I then opened my car door and showed him the mark on mine. The two didn't line up. He then became upset that I hadn't apologized. I told him he was right. I should have, and I did so. After we finished the test, I mentioned the situation to security. She said she had seen him jump out of his car and also thought it was strange, though she hadn't heard our conversation. The whole interaction felt odd. A coworker later told me she'd had similarly confrontational experiences with the same employee, so I emailed HR to report the incident and asked that any security footage be saved, though it turned out there was none. Not long after, he posted accusations on an internal company platform claiming that I had damaged his car and refused to fix it. He followed up a day later by tagging my boss and the company's CEO, asking why no one would address the situation and claiming that his calls were being ignored. He also said he had tried calling my boss but kept being told he was too busy, which seems unlikely. I'm not sure how to respond. There was no damage to his car, no police report was filed, and while he's been aggressive, he hasn't made any direct threats. What concerns me now is that he's lying about what happened. I haven't replied to his posts because it would be unprofessional to engage on our internal platform. The situation is further complicated because he indirectly reports to me. Story 26. My ex cheated on me and accused me of SA. In 2016, when I left for the Army, my ex cheated on me and falsely accused me. I didn't know at the time that she had made up the story to hide her cheating and protect her image with her friends. I loved her deeply, and learning all of this at once shattered me. I spiraled into despair, which eventually led to a panic attack during training. Because of that breakdown, I left the Army. I tried reaching out to her afterward, but she blocked me on everything, and her friends did the same. It felt as though the entire world had turned against me. After going through the legal process and proving my innocence, I was left with depression and anxiety. It took a few years to overcome the depression, but the anxiety remains. It returns whenever I think of her, reminders that pull me back to the past. I can hardly shop in Walmart without remembering the times we went there together. I've tried distancing myself from the things that trigger those memories, but I can't avoid everything. I even had to stop talking to a friend who knew her, because she would sometimes bring her up. I snapped at her once for that, and I still feel bad about it. She didn't know how I felt. The dreams are the worst. They bring her back most vividly. I felt a bit of relief a few years ago when her former friends messaged me to apologize for how they had treated me. They had discovered that my ex had lied about everything. It felt like a small measure of justice, a moment of truth finally breaking through. But it wasn't enough to make me feel whole again. The anxiety stayed. I often wondered why she got to go on as if nothing had happened, how she was able to move forward so easily. I questioned whether she ever thought about what she had done, whether she ever felt even a trace of remorse. But deep down, I know her too well. She could never admit her faults. I don't know why I'm writing this now after so long, but I figured letting it out can't make me feel any worse than I already do. Today, I saw her profile on Facebook as a suggested friend, and I froze when I saw her picture. I rarely go on Facebook because of that very reason. Even though just seeing her profile brings back all the pain, a part of me would still give anything to talk to her again. Maybe to ask why, to tell her how deeply her actions affected me. But I know I'll probably never get those answers. With the mark she left on me, it's been hard to pursue romantic relationships with other women. I've come close a few times, but I end up pushing them away when I think about what happened, afraid it might all happen again. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe, and hit the bell icon so you never miss an update.